Hi, friends. My name is Eric Barnett, and I'm a singer-songwriter from Charleston, South Carolina, and you're listening to Songs of the Unsung. Songs of the Unsung is a podcast where I talk to fellow singer-songwriters about their influences, their songs, and their stories. This week, my guest is Roger Mindwater. Roger is a singer, a songwriter, a poet, an artist, and a woodworker from Summerville, South Carolina. He embraces a very DIY aesthetic, recording and releasing his own music. In fact, his latest release is coming out today. You'll hear us joking throughout the podcast about not knowing what day it is. I never know exactly what day these are going to come out. But incidentally, it is out today, Friday, November 4th, and so is Roger's new album. Enjoy my conversation with Roger Mindwater. Thanks for stopping by today, Roger.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I first met you over at the Tin Roof. You were playing with Joshua Jarman and Ben Somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And I'd gone to see you guys because I just had Ben on the podcast.
Yep.
And since then had Joshua as well, and this completes the hat trick.
Yep, and now everything is complete in the world.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to have you on. Saw you play last at the Blackwater Boogie.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good time.
Yeah, you ran some good sound.
Well, I appreciate that. Except for when I have your drum machine muted and you're trying to turn. You know, I'm an amateur through and through, but we're all doing our best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good resources to learn about Roger is there's a podcast he does with Brian Dales on Craft Conversations. It's on, I saw it on YouTube, but it's on all the streaming platforms. And also Mary Regan has a really good article in the Post and Courier about you as well. So having done a little bit of research, we'll skip all the questions everybody always asks. Originally from Indiana, but weren't there too long?
Yeah. Yeah, I moved here when I was 3. And,
okay.
I've lived Goose Creek, Jedburgh, Summerville, downtown.
Right on.
Various stages of my life. I'm in Summerville now. I've been in Summerville for a while.
Okay.
But I mostly grew up in Summerville.
I'd heard you say that you are kind of from a musical family.
Yeah. My mom especially she is kind of like classically trained flautist.
Oh, wow.
And she plays piano and stuff. And my dad's like the kind of guy who was in a couple bands when he grew up and stuff, and he still plays guitar and stuff.
Cool.
In fact, the guitar I play is the one he had when he was younger.
Oh, that's really
cool.
The
only guitar I've ever had.
Really?
He just gave it to me when I was leaving for college and showed me a few chords, and that's it.
That's awesome, man. Were they playing a lot of music around the house, records and whatnot?
Yeah, records. Yeah, it's not like they were like playing live music.
There were family jams, right?
Nah, but yeah, a lot of records, and I think I got my love for records and stuff from that. I can still remember like listening to The Who or something.
Oh, so they were hip then. That's cool.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, it was Air Supply and Whitney Houston in my house.
Oh, okay, yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to
there
Who,
was Yes, a lot of Yes, and The Who and stuff. I think those are probably the 2 biggest ones.
Okay, you're on the right track then. At some point, piano lessons?
Yeah, when I was very small, and I don't know, maybe it was a year, and
didn't take.
I wasn't really
time.
into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just a little kid, so.
And then drum lessons.
Yeah, and that was kind of the same thing. It's just a little time, but that time I showed interest in it, and I guess drum lessons are very boring.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've taken any kind of lessons, but piano is okay. You're playing songs and stuff, but drum is just like hit the snare a bunch, and then you're like, come on.
So did they start you out just like with a snare drum?
I think it was stuff like that, just
that
super
sounds
simple,
horrible.
and you read it off there's X's on instead of notes.
Right. Probably all the stuff you wish like now you're like, oh, I wish I'd paid attention because,
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to know a little more theory. Just, I don't know, maybe it would help me write a song or something.
Yeah, I mean, you would think. I know just enough to be dangerous, and it helps me out of a jam every now and then, but sometimes instinct is goes. You don't have to know when to break the rules too. But
Yeah, definitely.
So it wasn't until you were like 18 started guitar.
Yeah, and that's what it was. When my dad gave me the guitar, and I just kind of played a little bit around college, and I remember writing some weirdo instrumental songs that I don't even remember what they sounded like, but and
Did-
learning to play a few basic like Radiohead songs or Neutral Milk Hotel. I learned this
Okay.
like yeah, and I just kind of sort of did it for a while until it was a few years later after I had miserably failed college and everything, and I really got more into it, and then picked drums back up.
Okay. Was somebody like playing guitar? Did you have any friends that were playing as well that you could play with?
No, maybe that was it. I was kind of in like it's just kind of a weirdo nerd group or something.
Okay.
Because I went to like a private school, and there weren't many just dudes like that, just who would just maybe smoke weed or something. Like there's
Sure.
like,
I think you said you were like big into soccer at the time.
yeah, I was more like that. So.
You were just kind of popular jock type, huh?
Yeah, so
Right,
popular. Yeah. They're always cheering my name when I walk down the hall.
So when did you start writing your own songs?
Well, I had those like weird things I had mentioned, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't really. I guess those are songs, but it was. Let me think. I mostly played drums for a while. I was really focusing on that at the beginning. It came the most easily to me.
Okay. I can definitely tell listening to like the Blue Ricky recordings. I was like, man, that guy can play. It's not. I mean,
Yeah,
I own a drum set, but like guys like you and like Joshua Jarman, I was like, they don't just own drum sets. They know how to play
Josh
them.
is good too.
Did you play in bands and stuff on drums?
I mean, I played with a band called Anodyne, with a guy named Chip Cooley, who's now in Social Void, as a band who plays around here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first band. I played drums in that band, and that was pretty fun. Kind of like a grungy kind of thing, and yeah, and Chip is a really talented guy with a lot of ideas and writes a lot of songs, but I wasn't really writing songs at that point. I was just drumming a lot, and then later I played in a band with Chris Bauer. I don't know if you ever met Chris Bauer, but
I haven't. I tried to look that up. Campfield was that band?
yeah, and he moved away to Oklahoma a year and a half or two ago. But we had Campfield as kind of like an on and off thing whenever we happened to live in the same town, and it started off with just me on drums and him playing guitar, keyboard, and yeah, I was just drumming. I still wasn't really writing songs, and then eventually we started to. Let me think. How did it go? Oh, yeah. The band kind of morphed. Like I went off to Portland and did solo stuff, and I got married and like isolated from the world and played just all by myself. And then later on, we kind of like restarted the band. Except sometimes we would switch, and we played half me on drums and half him on drums, and then we'd play our own songs, and it all kind of blend together. And that band was a lot of fun because it was only really two of us, but we would have other musicians come. Like we had a bassist who was there a lot of the time, named Rick Bickerstaff, but then we'd have a violin guy, Mike Williams, and then just all these kind of a rotating cast who would sit in for a couple shows here or there. And sometimes we had a bunch of them. Sometimes it would be like 7 guys.
That's awesome, man.
And yeah, it's kind of the band. And then our later shows, we would have little breaks where just someone else entirely would play like 3 or 4 songs.
Wow.
And then we get back to the thing, and then like we like having a bunch of different things going on. It's like a big kind of like a circusy kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Kind of big family, everybody getting
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that vibe.
What was it that motivated you to move out to Portland?
I had started writing songs with the words. Oh, that's what it was. I used to write I used to record and write these songs that were not really songy songs for years.
Just sort of ambient, instrumentalish,
Yeah,
sort of. Yeah.
Like I would record drums and then add things on top and stuff. But I had started recording or writing songs with words, and they were more like me playing a guitar, and I was really into Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie and stuff, and that kind of like American like folk kind of thing. And I was like, I'm gonna go out and play in the coffee shops and live in my car and do that kind of thing and just see what happens. Just like I was ready to just be homeless.
Did you know anybody out in Portland, or was it just what made you decide on Portland?
It was at the time. It was like 2009.
Mm-hmm.
It had been like the cool place to go for a couple years. It wasn't like getting like really.
It didn't become the cliche of cool. It was still like the thing that
Portlandia.
Yeah.
It was.
There's something. Anytime anything ends up being a cliche, it does actually start out cool for a while.
Yeah.
Until everybody says like, "Oh, I'm just going to pretend," or what have you.
Yeah.
You know.
And that was part of the problem. I moved there, so
it's all
I did. I mean, I wasn't there when it was really cool, but I went there. But the only person I knew ended up being my ex-wife, who I knew online and picked her up on the way there, and then so that.
Interesting.
That ended up derailing my whole musical aspirations.
Okay.
I played around a little bit in Portland at open mics and had a couple shows and drummed in a couple bands, but
then you thought like, oh, if I'm going to make a go of this whole family thing, this probably isn't going to put food on the table.
No, it was more like it was a really horrible marriage.
Gotcha.
I kept recording and stuff and writing songs. But.
Poetry came into this at some point. I can tell that you're approaching songwriting from like sort of a poet's standpoint. You can definitely hear songwriters who are poets. It's a lot of time it's sort of stream of consciousness. A lot of time I can't make with the metaphors the way that poets can, or really, I don't know. I had a buddy tell me one time, when you sing a song, you're just kind of saying what you're thinking about. Yep. I don't know how to put it in that. I don't know how to dress it up in a way that makes it poetic or makes it that. And you definitely do.
Yeah. So. Thanks.
Where and how and when did poetry come into this whole thing?
I suppose I always had a natural love of wordplay and stuff like that. And I remember the first poems I would really write were just kind of jokes and just like little tiny short things. And it'd be like, I have a pea on my head. So what? Or something, something like real dumb stuff. But they have like a real dark edge sometimes, like I'm dying and it's just like real, but it's all meant to be like kind of a joke. And I just kind of tinkered around with that, and I don't know. I had journals, and I would write in them, and I would be unable to write just like what's going on in my life. I would end up writing all these metaphors and things, and I always have a problem with just like sometimes I'm like, this journal is just going to be what I'm thinking, and I just can't. I'd like get half a page, and it's just like all of us. It
turns into prose. Yeah.
Yeah. So
now, do you read? Do you read a lot of poetry?
I don't read a lot of I read a lot more, fiction. But and nonfiction. But
I've tried, man. I've tried to, because I know like everybody's like, oh, it's going to make your songwriting better, or
I mean,
and I'll sit there and try, and I don't know. I even have a buddy that will send me song lyrics of something he's working on, and not connected to the song. I would rather hear those lyrics he wrote with the song.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
For sure, yeah, definitely.
It's hard when I get that to be like, I almost need the music to let me know where you're coming from here.
Yeah. I think definitely if it's meant to be in a song, it's going to be better. I mean, it won't work. It doesn't. You can't really read lyrics and be like, yeah. But I don't. I mean, I read I have poetry books in my house and stuff, but I'm not like always. It's kind of I don't know. It's
Poets are different, man. Like I do know poets who like they've actually gone to college and like taken poet and they meet in groups and do readings, and man, that's I gotta have a guitar there or I can't be that open and exposed, you know.
I've started to do a monthly open mics around Charleston. There's free verse festival is like kind of the name of the people that do it, and they have like it's all around a different month. It's a different spot, and there'll be like sometimes there's like 100 people there, not reading, but if it's a common house ale works,
right,
bam, and then you just get up there and there's nothing there, you know, you just it's but I will say playing music first has definitely helped with doing that.
Sure, yeah. I when I first moved to town here, although I'd played plenty of gigs in front of people, it was generally at least a few people in that audience that I knew, which would help me out. So I had a bit of stage fright when I moved to town. And when I hear other people be like, "Oh, I'm scared to death of public speaking," I'm like, you know, I get it. Yeah. I get it. I can't imagine trying to be up there and, oh man, words are so naked on their own.
It is hard to get. Well, I don't know if it's hard, but it's something I had to think about. I wouldn't say it's hard because I like doing it. It's like, which is figuring out a way to say it so it's interesting. And like, you kind of do the same thing when you sing. You kind of like the melody, but you got the melody and stuff.
Sure.
So when it's real rhythmic
but you can hide bad lyrics in a good song.
Oh, for sure.
But when they're out there on their own,
it's rough. Yeah.
I've seen poetry readings that have moved me, and I've seen some that are pretty cringy.
Yeah.
And that I have trouble just in my own lyric writing being I'm a tough editor of myself, and I hold myself probably more accountable than I should a lot of the time, where I'll put a lyric down and I'll be like, oh, this belongs on the back of a high school notebook, not in a song I'm trying to sing.
Yeah.
But
but you know, I've been listening to a lot of 50s rock and roll lately, and a lot of those lyrics are just like, I love you so much or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it's great.
Well, how many of the Beatles hits had the word love in it?
Yeah, like half of them at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a good song, it's a good song. You know.
Have you always been, well, I'm pretty sure you've always been kind of recording your own music, haven't you?
Yeah.
Was that born out of necessity or out of like, I want to be the one that does it, or?
It was at the beginning, the recording and the songwriting were like together. It was kind of like I had these ideas in my head, and I was probably mostly alone too. It was a time where I was just in my life where I was mostly just alone, and I've always had that tendency to just like when I was in my 20s, especially, just I could just chill forever alone, and it's fine. And I would make a bunch of music, and it'd be like I would lay some drum. I would be having like an idea in my head for a week or something, walking around. Like the song is kind of like this kind of feeling and shape or something, and then I would work on like a drum part for a while, and then record it, and then I would add stuff.
Nice,
like because I already had the image of what it was going to be, and I'd be like the guitars are kind of here and whatever.
What did you have, like an old 4-track, or what were you recording on?
At the beginning, I was just using a digital workstation thing. I can't remember the name of it.
Like an all-in-one. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I just had one mic. I had like a condenser mic, and it worked all right. I didn't really know anything about. I mean, a lot of I never had training in the production on the
engineering
compression
side,
and all that.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of just guessing the whole time, and I listened back to that stuff, and it's all right. I mean, I'm kind of amazed it sounds as decent as it does.
I had a buddy when I was might have been back as far as junior high, that I was trying to join their band. Like it was who I considered to be cool. And they had guitars, and they like let me play bass and everything. And he lent me a 4-track recorder, like the old cassette tape one. And I monkeyed around with that for a while. And that really got my love of it. And I tried to actually go to college and learn recording. I think I learned just enough to ruin it. Because things like compression, things like effects, if you don't know what you're doing, it can go bad. So sometimes when I listen to some of these guys who are home recordists and they really don't know what to do necessarily, and they're kind of just going by instinct and they're going by hearing, man, I would rather listen to a recording where somebody didn't know compression existed, so they didn't put a bad compression on.
For sure. Yeah.
You know? And I feel like I should have had less knowledge at the beginning, I guess. And
you just knew enough to use the stuff badly.
Yeah, I knew enough to ruin it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure that, if I went back and I listened to those things, I'm sure I could pick out a million things. But they sound fine. I like how that sounds, and that's enough. I'm not too picky on fidelity or things like that.
I was listening to your catalog and starting out, there's a lot. Have you heard like the real early Beck? Like before, like long before like Loser and stuff like that.
What's that? Well, I've heard the album that Loser's on, and there's some folky kind of stuff a little bit.
Kind of like freak folk or like acid folk, they kind of call it. There might have been one. Was it Stereopathic Soul Manure? Is that the one where it's
I never heard. I know that name. Yeah.
Oh man, like it sort of reminded, like your earlier stuff kind of reminded me of like that really early Beck, or there's like a even kind of all the way up to, I think the record is, I have it here. How Could I Forget? I think How Could I Forget actually made a pretty big turn fidelity wise for your recordings. But up to it kind of reminded me of like, or you ever listen to like Animal Collective or something where it's the first record, I definitely can hear the Bob Dylan in there because it's a guitar and it's a harmonica and but then there's like this,
and that's actually probably right in the middle of my discography.
Yeah, I'd never heard the 2007.
I'm in the process of uploading one every month or so.
Okay,
on
cool.
Instagram. I'm just dumping all these albums on people.
I got you.
But anyway.
But yeah, I could. There's definitely I can hear a Bob Dylan, but there's like a different element to it. One that's like a little more.
Mountain Goats. Ever heard of them? I was listening to Mountain Goats
for sure.
What else was? I've always listened to like loud guitar music too, so that's always going to be in somewhere in that guitar.
Yeah. There's a lot of things I listen, and I don't really love like slick production. It's fine. I can appreciate it. I don't know how to do it, and I wish I did. Just so
I
could.
Just learn a few steps and then you do them, and then.
But as far,
it's boring.
I always enjoy when something has a little bit of an edge to it, a little bit of a little crunchiness to it. And yeah, man, I could tell like kind of what you were going for, and I really enjoyed it, especially in the couple records after that when sort of ambient started coming into play. Maybe some like did you incorporate some kind of like field recordings into a few things?
Yeah, I love field recordings.
Yeah, very cool.
Mm-hmm. The new one I have coming out, or I don't know when this podcast comes out, but maybe it's already out. And it has a lot of that ambience and stuff. I've kind of like that first album on Music is Dead, which is on the streaming right now. That was kind of like ground zero of nothing extra added. And I've slowly kind of eased back into the style I did way at my start. But now I'm singing lyrics and stuff. It's kind of a funny...
Sure, yeah.
I don't know.
I've always noticed, and even in my own stuff, like you never try to repeat what you did before, and you're like, well, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do this. But then sometimes you go back and go, well, I kind of miss doing that a little bit.
Yeah. That's kind of what it was, yeah.
Yeah. And there was a point where right when I put on that How Could I Forget record, I was like, oh, like he upgraded either the way he was recording or he started spending a lot more time. Like the drums sounded really nice. And I was like, there's definitely a fidelity turn on this one.
The same microphone, same.
Really?
I just had a different idea.
Okay.
I wanted to, well, also that was a post-divorce album.
Okay.
So I was definitely like, well, let's switch something. And I wanted to make an album that anyone could just like a random guy or girl on the street could listen to it and be like, oh yeah, okay, that's music.
Try to go for
And
something a little more accessible.
yeah, because in the past when I go back and forth on that kind of thing, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't give a shit. And
right.
But at that moment, I was like, I want to just make something that's easy. And the first couple songs are just like, just have a hook right there. And then I hadn't really done that in a while, maybe ever. I don't know. Maybe that was the first record I really tried to hook it up.
It still seems like there's I hate to use the word indie because people use it like it's a genre and not just a thing that is an independent person doing a thing.
Yeah, but it's all weird.
But to throw up like the air quotes, and by saying indie, I mean like maybe like a Pavement vibe or even like a sort of there's like early Flaming Lips vibe I get in some things as well, where it's where it's like, it's folk, but it's got a little bit of that psychedelic sort of skew to it, where it's through like, oh, maybe I'm not going to give you the easiest. I'll put it through a little bit of a psychedelic lens here. We'll tilt the camera a little bit,
I think when I was making that album, I had this idea of, I like constructing a whole album, like as a thing. And it was like this sort of the songs kind of all just constantly drifting off into like this dream kind of feeling and then snapping back into like, because like when you're walking around in your day to day, you'll be lost in your thoughts and stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Whoa, I'm walking in my backyard," and that would happen to me, and I was like, "Oh, I can do a song thing like this," because I don't know why, but
so having all these come out on streaming when they were kind of lost, when you initially made these, kind of how did they exist? Were they a physical copy, or were they up on the internet, or how did they exist?
Like 2007, there was no way to just upload your stuff to the streaming.
Yeah, that wasn't a thing yet.
But there was the big thing then was like those sharing websites like Mediafire and I forget all the names of them. I used to hang out online with music people and like music listening people, music nerds, you might say, and then I would upload my stuff, and then some of those people would listen to it, and then some other people made music too, and it was kind of a little funny little online scene thing. But I would make CD cases, and I think the first couple albums didn't have anything except the digital. But then I started to make, some of them it would be like the jewel case, and I would make the inserts and print them out and the whole thing, and some of them I'd just be like a piece of cardboard with a paper.
I tried. I was in one band where we actually paid to have them like professionally made and everything. And I was honestly too poor at the time to be doing that sort of thing and went like so much in debt doing that. And then after that, I was like, I got to figure out how to make this stuff more manageable because I'm poor. So we were doing the burning the CD, and then you're always figuring out like, oh, how do I make it so I don't have to like cut things out and slip it in a jewel case and all that. So we tried. I was in an ambient group. It was ambient instrumental music that we did like lots of delay pedals and looping and things. So that crowd, you can kind of do a little bit different stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we're into it."
Yeah, that's kind of the stuff. Like my earlier stuff was more that in that vein too. So, and it was just that kind of crowd of people who would listen to it. And
there were a lot of labels who were just, it was kind of like a lot of times just like a guy in his garage. He'd be like, "Oh, can I put a thing of yours on my label?" And I was like, yeah. So you record a thing and send it to him. And
you did that too?
Yeah, I did a little bit. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That stuff doesn't exist anymore, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. Maybe you just have to be young.
I got to figure out how to log back into MySpace, and it does.
Yeah. I got to update my top, whatever.
Yeah. That was in the days of MySpace, all that stuff. But
I was never really on there, but
Laughing Dog, that's kind of just your
I just made it up.
Your own little label.
I have my books, like I do a publishing thing through some website, and I just named the thing Laughing Dog, and so it's kind of
oh, that's cool
because dogs look like they're laughing sometimes.
What are you still recording on the same all-in-one that you used to do, or what are you recording on these days?
These days, it switched a few times. But these days, I have the luxury of being in Blue Ricky with a bandmate who has a bunch of money, and I am the house that the band practices at.
Okay.
And there's just drum mics and there's mics, and I can just have whatever I want. And there's like a 16 channel, like Scarlett interface.
Oh yeah.
Or it's 12. But yeah, so I can just do whatever I want.
That works.
And let me think.
Is that the bass player who has all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Scott. Yeah. But
yeah, Ben was talking
Scott.
about how you guys record, yeah.
I haven't actually recorded an album with all the drums and stuff, with all that gear though. Like this last one I recorded, I did use a lot of mics, but it was mostly a guitar folk thing. Like I had a room where I think I had 5 inputs for just me playing guitar and singing.
Wow.
Well, there was just a dry one on my voice and one on the guitar. And then I had a second microphone right here that was going into an amp.
Okay.
With some reverb on my voice. And then I had a guitar going into an amp with whatever effects it's all the same reverb. And then so I had those 2 mics on the amps, and then extra just out in the room. I have like a little room.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
I think it came out really well because you can hear them all combine, and the room, you get the feeling of it.
It's nice when you can sort of get a sound right off the bat instead of having to go in like a Pro Tools or what have you and add some sort of dumb fake reverb. It's nice when you can. I recorded a friend of mine who kind of had that sort of thing going, where we ran a microphone into a vocal microphone into an amp. I love spring reverb, where it was getting he was getting the reverb off the amp, and you can sort of just blend it all together.
Yeah. And
nothing really happened in the mix that didn't happen in the room. It was just kind of the way you blend it together. It's very organic that way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it was. And it was it's such minimal effort to get, like, this tracks have this bass of the guitar and voice.
Yeah.
And I added ornamentation around it, but that bass is just like, it was instantly sounding good. I didn't even do anything.
Very cool.
So, I mean, I tweaked it a little bit in the end, but it was just nice to have that instantly. Like, wow,
it's the vibe.
It's at least going to sound good. At least this good.
You didn't have to manufacture a vibe. It was
there. It was just there.
That's good. That's the new record?
Yeah, that's called Black Mountain, and it's November 4th. I don't know what day today is.
I don't either. Do you want to play us something off of that?
Yeah, sure. I'll play this song called Raven Cliff Ridge. And all the songs were named after spots, actual places on the map. So, yeah, Raven Cliff Ridge.
Awesome, man.
You ask me how I'm doing, I can't find the words. I lost them wandering the places you never heard. My name's the same, but I'm not the one you used to know. I've been living in the places no one goes. I woke up shivering in a burnt out house, treetops glistening from the ground. Yeah, I was listening to the sound, but I couldn't figure anything out. Please, yeah, you're moving me out loud against the sky, and it's hard to say. Hard to say, hard to say. You might see me standing 1,000 miles away. In your mirror after you go to sleep. Remember this, I'm not always this way. Ah, the earth keeps spinning, it's just a passing phase. I jump straight into the river's ice, over my head, into my eyes. Yeah, water everywhere outside. Inside I'm flooded, nowhere to hide. Please, yeah, you're moving me outline against the sky. And it's hard to say. Hard to say, hard to say. Hard to say.
Nice, man.
Thank you.
So everything on the album is named after a place. So that's sort of the theme.
Yeah, and it's because I went on a hiking or camping trip, hiking and camping 2 years ago. And that's why I'm doing it November 4th, because that's the exact two-year anniversary.
Oh, cool.
I just got lucky. And I did it by myself, and I was kind of in not too good of a spot. I was real sad and shit. And but it was a really nice trip, and I hiked all day. I did this trail, and I hiked up a mountain called Black Mountain, and then
cool.
It was up in North Carolina mountains.
Oh, very cool, man. How far did you hike?
I went a long way because I had a plan and I had a map for all the trails, and I did the plan, and I was like, well, I have all this time left, and I kept adding bits, and I was like, I want to see this waterfall, and I'm going to do this, and I ended up just coming back right as the night was coming back to my campsite, and I think it was like 22 miles or something. It was just like a big long, and I saw a person, every couple hours maybe. Just at an intersection, maybe there'd be a biker or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really nice, and I was recording ideas into my phone, and I'd use some of the recordings on the album.
Oh, that's cool.
Some of the like I'd be walking down the trail and you can hear my footstep, and I'm saying things into the phone, and field recordings of the streams and waterfalls and things are in there too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Birds, yeah, a lot of field recordings.
I'm excited to hear that record, man.
Thanks. Yeah.
So I remember you talking with Brian Dales a little bit, and granted, this was 3 years ago. A lot of things happened in 3 years, but he was talking to you about your notion of physical copies of what have you, of a recording. I know you've done a split cassette tape.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And I know at the time you were talking about, maybe flash drives are the way to go. And Brian Dales was like, you got to have something to sell. Are flash drives, what's the way what do we do?
I don't think flash. I think records are the way to go, actually, for physical music medium, because you're just all in on the physical side of it. If you want to listen to the digital, it sounds just as good as a CD or something like that. So if you can listen to digital, sometimes I listen to the Spotify version of a record I own. It doesn't sound as good, but I'm for just if people want to buy something,
sure,
they're going to buy a record.
I mainly listen to music off of Apple Music, and that's for convenience because I can't have a record player in my car. I don't.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd probably skip a lot in Charleston, but I listen to off my phone a lot, and that's just the way it's come. There's nothing like sitting down and putting a record on, just because, not just the fidelity of it, but the fact that you're committing to a record.
Yeah, there's something in that.
Yeah.
And also buying it too.
Yeah.
Which I've reconnected with. I used to have, I used to buy a bunch of CDs and records when I was younger and stuff. And like more recently started collecting records again. I got like a new turntable, and I rediscovered that thing when you buy something and, there's more of a relationship with it.
You've participated a little bit.
And then you kind of give it more of a chance, or and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, maybe there's something cool in the music I just wasn't going to listen for if I just streamed it for a couple seconds.
Right.
And
the unfortunate part about streaming is it's just there's a skip button and you can skip to the next thing, and it kind of it makes your brain go the same way that scrolling Instagram and Facebook does. It's like, okay, next.
Yeah, I know. And sometimes I'm sure you'll be like, well, do I want to listen to this guy, or no, I'll listen to her. No, I'll listen to that band. No, okay, that band's good. All right, no, wait. And then you're
paralyzed by limitless possibilities.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like going and seeing a band and walking away with something. Like, I haven't had a record player in a while because moving here to Charleston, it just got lost in the move. But I have bought, when I've seen concerts, if they have a record, I will buy it and take it home and say, at least this is a physical thing of theirs,
One day, yeah.
One day. I just got to get a turntable again. Are you so you're kind of an album person more so than a singles person?
I mean, I like singles too, and especially more recently, I've really liked the idea of just some hot singles,
Yeah.
In fact, I have kind of an idea, or I've been working on songs that I'm going to just have some project with just singles, like fun kind of rock music, and just have some fun recordings and singles. And
the nice part about a single is you're not locked into, like, if you tried to make an album that spanned all these different genres and went all over the place, it kind of wouldn't be cohesive.
Yeah.
But when you can do singles, you can kind of just do whatever and put a thing out.
Low pressure and stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been listening to a lot of old rock and roll, and that was all singles. And
right.
There's something about just like that one, like 2 minute, 3 minute thing, and then you just put everything into it, and yeah, it's there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, they were meant to just kind of stand alone.
Yeah. But I always like, sitting down listening to an album.
So, writing, you do some writing as well. You talked about on Brian's podcast A Few Good Places. Is that I went looking for it. I couldn't find it. Is that available?
It's right here.
It's right
You
here.
want one?
Yeah, I'll buy one off you.
I'll just I keep a couple in here, I think. Oh yeah, I got them both. I keep a couple of poetry books in my guitar case, and yeah, A Few Good Places. I guess this one was not out at the time.
Very cool.
They cut up the big tree because that one did come out later. And my poetry books. I'm working on a new one. Not very focused on it right at the moment, but it's kind of like mostly done, and so it's I had this idea because I was wondering why most poetry sucks.
Yeah.
And it does. And I think I know why most poetry sucks. Except unless it just sucks, like flat out.
Right.
Right. But it's because so much of it is about I did this, I feel this way. That's about I walked down the street, I my boyfriend or my. It's so much like listen to my emotions, how I feel, even if they connect it back to the world somehow.
Sure.
It's like always like something about I, and then so I have this idea of the book's going to be called Other People, and all the poems are just about other people, and some of them are made up, and some of them are maybe someone I just encounter for a minute at the store, or like I have this one idea that is for a poem that's kind of half written about a guy who likes to go around and buy empty lots in the city, because I've always liked to see an empty lot, just like green trees and stuff right in the middle of suburban junk, and like this idea of a guy who just drives around and buys them all and keeps them that way.
Instead of somebody who's like, I see an IKEA and a Starbucks or a parking lot. Somebody who's like, no, I don't see that.
Yeah. So yeah, Other People, I don't know. We'll see. It's fun anyway.
So when you play gigs, do you have these books with you?
Yeah, I always just keep a couple of poetry books at my music shows.
There you go. That's something people can buy.
There you go, merch. And yeah, I don't have shirts, and I don't have eye patches or anything like that.
Yeah, I've always felt weird about shirts, man. Because I just have such a normal name. Like, who wants a shirt with my name on it? That's just weird. Like, if I was a band,
well, I think like Dan Riley he has the bear, right, or a lightning bolt. So even though his name is like just a regular name, no offense, Dan, but the name's really regular, but you got the bear, and that's cool because
for sure, it's
something.
I don't know.
And
maybe I'm just too hard on myself. But
yeah, I'm not a real big merch guy, but like in Blue Ricky Ben, thank God he is, because not God. Thank somebody, and
thank Ben,
thanks Ben because he does all his work doing merch and stuff. Scott too, but and I'm just
all the Blue Ricky merch is really cool.
And
sometimes there are bands and it's just a band name, but then there are some people that have figured out how to take that and like brandalize it.
Yeah,
but it's not like in like a capitalist way, but it figured out how to take that thing and attach it to a visual aesthetic that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's Ben's great at that, and I have maybe a fear of capitalism or something. I don't know what it is, but I'm always like
I'm bad at business. I think it's that.
I'm just bad at business, and I'm too generous, or I'm like, I'll just do it for free, or
right.
Musicians who try to get paid hate me, and
Yep.
But whatever.
There is something that I often wonder, especially when I'm talking to folks on this podcast. And I was kind of thinking about this when I was listening to your songs and looking at your albums and seeing like that you're putting them on Bandcamp and such. And I wonder, like, I've had folks in here that I've been talking to, and they're like, oh man, I've written this song and I'd love it if this artist heard this song and played my song. And when that person would say that, I would think like, my songs are so personal. Like I can't even imagine anybody else singing my songs and everybody has sort of a different way to define success in their own medium. Mm-hmm. And I'm listening to your music and I'm like, it's very your own as far as the sound is concerned. And while there may be a song every now and then, I was like, oh, I could hear like maybe somebody else playing that, but it would definitely be them covering that. You know what I mean? Not anybody really making it their own. Like what in terms of your music, what would you say would make you a success? Like what's your metric for success?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think you can set it however you like, I think. And I mean, it's kind of different phases because you make the thing and then you release it. And so up until the release point, if I can listen to it and be like, this is, and put it on for enjoyment, and I'll do that. I'll make something and I'll listen to it because I like it. And sometimes I'll listen to it a bunch and then never again for like 5 years. But yeah, like I could put on the my new album right now and just be like, man, this is good music, and have fun listening to it, and then also being satisfied with how
Sure.
But later on, it's I just kind of just take what I can get, because it doesn't take much though, because if I'm out playing a show and there's like one person who comes up and says, you were really good and I like the song, this one song or something like that, and like I win.
I've always thought of that, like in at least in terms of my own stuff, like my perfect album is one that I can walk away with knowing that I did everything I set out to do.
Yeah.
And I want to make records for me. Like I don't write a song with the thought of a hit or a single or a and at least that's my own approach. And there's music is so art in general is so broad that there's room for all of it.
Oh yeah. And I've definitely tried different levels of trying to do that, where you want people to, and like if I'm writing songs for Blue Ricky, I'm like, I'm gonna write songs that, well, what I do is I write songs and then they get funneled into different.
Okay. Yeah.
So it'll be like, this song is really gonna get people like amped up and it's high energy and stuff. It's a Blue Ricky.
It's a Blue Ricky.
And so it's like, and I know right away when I start writing it which one's gonna be, but it's like I've really developed a sense of what songs are gonna do for people listening. And I used to kind of just whatever I had, that was it. And
sure.
But yeah, now I'm at the point where I have multiple solo projects, and
that's wild.
Just because I wanted to do different things with it, so it's just fun. Really, I'm just kind of playing around.
Yeah, I've always. It's not like I'm holding myself to a high standard or what have you. I just feel like if I was giving in to trying to make something, I don't know, radio friendly or whatever the popular thing would be, I would immediately call myself out for it. I wouldn't feel right about doing that.
Would you want to listen to your own song if it was like that? Would you put it on and
I don't think it'd ever get all the way out. Like if I start a song and it starts down that route, it gets shut down. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'd probably
mean the writing of the song.
The writing of the song. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, a little validation is nice,
Yeah, for sure. And there's a few songs like I know people react to, and they'll maybe old songs or something. And like I was at the Bogey the other day, and there's that campfire thing, and I was like, I'm going to play this song because I know it's like
it'll do well,
the kind of song that people are like, "Wee, it's fun," and it worked.
Well, and that's good, Yeah, you were talking about sometimes you'd write a song and you would say, well, this is where this song goes. This is this solo project, or this is Blue Ricky. Or when you write songs, do you sit down and say, I'm going to write a song right now? Or is it more of kind of in your everyday life? You kind of just hear a song kind of sneak by and you're like, oh, I'm going to go grab that.
Mostly that. Yeah. And although sometimes if there's been like a day where it's like an intense day, emotionally or something, and I'll just be, I typically play a guitar every day, just in the evening. And it'll be about that time, or I'll be like, I gotta, I know I'm going to write a song or something like that. But usually, and those are quick songs usually. Usually it's like I'm just walking around, maybe in the morning, I get like opening up the work truck. I'm like, whoa, and something, and I have like a little snippet, and it's usually like a melody line. It's like one little kind of fully formed line of singing of words, and it maybe get changed over time, and then I just kind of tease it out and work it all out, and sometimes they die, and but yeah, and it's usually I'm just working on, well, usually there'll be like one I'm really thinking about, and there'll be a few kind of lying around, like 2/3 done. Is it
a lot of singing stuff into the phone?
Yeah, my phone's full of just 15 seconds,
As a poet, though, do some start on the page and then do some start as a poem and then end as a song?
So yeah, there is some like that, yeah. Because I use I use the phone for the notes
Sure.
poetry too. So I have all the notes in there.
Okay.
And sometimes it was two things. Sometimes like if I get stuck and I just want some, I'll just flip through and I'll see a line, and then I think that I've heard people say they do that before. And sometimes though the whole song is really just lifted from a poem, and that's and I'll kind of change the poem a little bit to fit the song and stuff.
Sure.
Fit
the form. And
yeah, that's kind of rare, but sometimes I do it.
When the one thing that I wish I had taken a little bit of writing in college and even in high school when it was offered. The one thing I do wish that I at least, you were talking about, it'd be nice to have the theory.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice, at least for my own benefit, to have sort of the theory of poetry. To have something where, okay, if I'm sitting down at a blank piece of paper and I have a pencil, I'd like to at least know a few little tricks to get something rolling, to get that pencil moving, and I know nothing.
Oh yeah,
you know,
that's tricky. Yeah, and I don't know what they teach in poetry class at all. But the tricky thing about poetry is it's just words, and anyone can just write some words down. And
yeah,
but the poetry and the songwriting come very much from the same sort of place. It's again the filtering. It just happens at a higher poetry or song. And
you start with a phrase or an idea, and you're like, okay, there's water in this well, and then
and the top is dry, or whatever, and that starts to be a poem. And then just depending on whatever poetic phase or mood I'm in, like sometimes I'll just play around with the formatting of it. Just sometimes I'll just try to write a real fast stream of consciousness poem.
Now, when the songs start to stack up, and the albums come out of it. And like your latest record, I mean, a lot of your records are what I would even think is like a concept album. It's like it's cohesive. There's kind of a theme. This latest one, it's all kind of. Do you kind of say, I'm going to get in that headspace for a moment?
Yeah, totally. And I like it a lot whenever I'm recording an album, because or like I was saying, a lot of my earlier stuff I would write as I recorded. And then I started writing songs, and now it's kind of both. Like I'll have songs, but then I'll definitely develop a lot as I'm recording it.
Right.
And it's I get very focused on it, and I'll just be thinking about it all day for however long it takes to do the thing. And it's, and then like I'm emerged from recording this last one recently, and it's just like you're just walking around now, like, okay, what's next? And
at some point, just kind of the album sort of reveals itself.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I've cracked the code now. I know where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, there's always a sort of a moment or something where it's like, this one's going to be about this, or this is the idea behind it. And yeah, definitely.
Now, I realize that some of the songs end up being Blue Ricky songs, but do you have songwriters that you look up to the point where you can start a song and go, well, that kind of reminds me of this songwriter, and then you kind of channel that person for a minute? Or is it all through Roger? Yeah.
I copy like everybody. I'm serious. It's just like, but I just have maybe just more influences than people because I listen to a bunch of music. But it's so often I'm starting a song with another song in mind.
Okay.
Like, but they come out completely different.
Sure. It's one of those where, I mean, I could tell people like, oh, well, this is my Tom Petty song, and they'll listen. They'll go, well, that doesn't sound right. But to me, I'm like, oh, I stole it. I mean,
yeah. Or it's like eventually just by maybe the very first idea for the song came from some song usually it's a song I'm just obsessed with at the moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm like sort of copy it, but then I just develop it enough so it doesn't resemble it a lot. And by then there's other ideas that have come into and stuff.
Who are your favorite songwriters?
Well, I have been listening to a lot. I like Bob Dylan, just for the easy answer.
Sure. Yeah.
And recently I have been listening to him again. He kind of comes and goes.
Kind of what phase?
Yeah. Right now I've been kind of mining around in the the unreleased early folk stuff,
Okay.
like that bootleg series, and where they released the old things
Yeah.
that weren't on the albums, and just the real young stuff where he still had that like zest for something, and
He had some fun. Yeah.
and I like the guy who does the songwriter Guided by Voices, Robert Pollard.
Yeah.
And he just like writes like thousands of songs and just
Right.
but he just writes whatever he feels, and the song could be like a little 45-second folk chunk, or it could be like a rock song that changes halfway into, and just whatever. And then another modern guy I like is Kurt Weill, who is like a kind of a folk rock kind of guy. And he's a lot of finger picking and real laid back songwriting. Yeah, those are like my main three that I can think of.
Okay. If now you said sometimes you'll be like obsessed with a song for it. Are there any songs, and you can name a few, but are there any songs that have been just a constant obsession as long as you can remember? Are there songs where you like, man, if I could write that song, that'd be it for me?
Yeah. I wouldn't be that fatalistic about it, or I don't know if that's even the word to use, but there's definitely songs that like I'm like, man, I've thought for years and years that this is just an amazing thing, and I don't know even how they did it, and having wrote a bunch of songs myself, sometimes I'm still like, how did they do that?
You got any good examples?
For some reason, Kate Bush springs to mind, and like
okay,
some of the songs on the Dreaming and Hounds of Love, just like I don't even know what she was doing, and
right,
it's fantastic.
I only learned Hounds of Love through who's that band that covered it?
Oh yeah, but that song too. That's like it's really deceptively simple, but it's just man, and she did it almost all herself too in the studio. Just bam.
I do that with Tom Waits songs a lot. I'm obsessed with Tom Waits, and every now and then I'll like break down even lyrically like one of his songs, and if you like just print the lyrics out on a page and you look at it and you go, how did he do that? Like, how did that become, number one, how did all those words end up together? And how does it somehow make sense? And how does it make me feel feelings? Those words. And yeah,
he's really good.
That's a code to crack, you know? And sometimes the answer is there is no answer. Sometimes it's the way you deliver it, you know?
Yeah, personally, I've kind of over the years gravitated towards trying to write the way I would talk and then sing it to people. Like I'm trying to sing like, hi, I'm singing at you, not at you, but you know. And so it's really like easy to communicate that way. Because sometimes like people will warp the sentences to fit the rhyme or something, and I'm like, you don't talk like that,
right? I love it, and I need to figure out how. I tend to be rhymey. And it gets to the point where I'm like, oh, I need to not do that. Or I love it when somebody can do a thing where, like, let's say they do rhyme 2 lines, but the second time they sing the line that rhymes isn't the last word of the line.
Ooh,
yeah.
Like
if something went down and then he's like, came around to, you know,
that's good.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I got to figure out how to do more of that.
Like, I love hip hop too. So. And I'll have like real happy phases where I'm really into those are times when I write a lot of lyrics.
Okay.
Just the way they all fit together.
Well, when you hear something and it kind of reassures you, like, hey man, you can do that. And you're like, I can do that.
yeah. And that is actually one great thing about most hip hop is like it has that spirit to it.
Yeah.
Where they're like, I'm doing it.
You're like, F you, I'm gonna do that. Yeah. I'm going there.
Yeah.
So being kind of a guy that enjoys albums, what are there any albums that are kind of your go-to?
I mean, I have albums that I would call my favorite, you know.
Yeah.
But like if someone asked me what my favorite album was, it'll be Can Tago Mago, which it's like a German psych rock band.
Okay.
In the early 70s, but it's just really far out crazy stuff. And then also, you know, I mean, I love Highway 61 Revisited, that just because I'm already thinking about him, but You just pick out albums out of nowhere. How do you even do that?
Yeah, I mean,
when I was a kid, I would have said Operation Ivy Energy, like when I was in high school, because that album was just like blew my mind, And when I was a little older, I would have said like Kid A, Radiohead, and because I was really into Radiohead, and that album too, especially was like that was when I heard that was kind of the thing where I'm like, how do they do this music?
For me, Radiohead was like, I remember like the Bends coming out and being like, oh, this is the guitar album for me. And then like, OK Computer came out and you're like, oh, wow, now they're doing that.
Oh, so you did it as they...
it was as it went.
Well, I got lucky and I bought the Bends first. And I went in order. So I at least kind of got that.
Sure, yeah.
And then I bought Hail to the Thief when it came out. So
okay.
I was sort of on the train, but yeah, that would have been cool to do it.
Oh, I got it as it was coming.
And then you had like before the Kid A album and all the
fake weird stuff they were putting out, and then all of a sudden Kid A hits, and I'm just like, what? Because you thought you had them pinned down.
Yeah,
you thought like there was a point in time where it was just like Oasis is the new Beatles, and then there's a minute you're like, wait a minute. Maybe Radiohead's the new Beatles.
Yeah.
And then they come out with Kid A, and you're like, in a way,
still is.
Radiohead is definitely the new Beatles. Yeah. And man, Amnesia gets a lot of hate. I love that record.
Right now, that's my go-to.
Yeah.
And I was kind of listening to them again a few months ago, and that's my most played one right now.
I just remember listening and I'm a liner note guy.
Yeah.
And I'm also a headphone active listener. Like I'm not a background, put it on, lift weights to it or whatever guy. I'm sitting here in a dark room and like when like Spinning Plates comes on and it's obviously just something backwards. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm like,
there's so many parts. How do they do it? That's a good one.
Yeah. Radiohead's a good one for that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? What's the future of the music you're going to make? I know this next one you're kind of bringing back elements of like the ambience, the field recordings, the kind of folk. No drums on this one, but there's
a little bit of drums,
but
it wasn't not based around them.
Gotcha, not groove driven or what have you. Yeah. What are you thinking about for the future? You got plans and schemes?
I have another album almost written, and that makes me sound really cool, but it's only because I took
makes you sound very cool
a long time to record this Black Mountain, and the songs are 2 years old, and it just took a while because I did other stuff in between, and I've been writing other songs, and then they're more drum driven, like more kind of towards the how did I forget? What's that album called? How Did I Forget?
Yeah. How did you forget what that album was called?
That kind of folk rock with psychedelic noisy junk or whatever,
Very cool. I mean, I'm excited to see what you have going out. I'm glad you came over here and I got to know you a little better.
Yeah, it was fun.
Got the next album coming out November 4th. I don't know exactly when this podcast is going to hit, but definitely go to, you can hear it on Spotify and Apple Music and all those things, and Roger will get a fraction of a penny. Or what you should actually do is go to Bandcamp and donate put as much money as you think that is worth. It's
you can pay whatever you want.
It's actually. At least $20.
You could pay hundreds of dollars if you like.
Hundreds even. And if you see him live, be sure you
tip heavily
and buy some of these poetry books. Because he's got a lot of lines in the water.
I'm always surprised how people like poetry. Like it seems like something no one cares about, and then I get a lot of surprise. Like I get a lot of gratitude from the reactions to the poetry stuff. It blows my mind every time.
Yeah. Excellent. It's always nice to know that your people are out there.
Yeah.
You might not think they're your people when you're sitting up there playing and people are just sitting there, and then afterwards they'll come up and say, "Hey, I was into that."
For real.
Please, if you're there and you're seeing a local musician of any type, if you are into anything, go tell them.
Yeah, it'll make their day. That's it.
All right, man. Got one more tune you want to leave us with?
Yeah, this one is a new one that is part of this batch of newer songs, and it is about falling in love, really, and it's called "Breathing Underwater." So,
all right,
I'm gonna play it.
All right, thanks for dropping by today, man.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me. There's a beautiful noise through this big world. I heard a voice through the wind swirl. It wasn't a dream, it was my dream, girl. I fell in a river and I couldn't feel better. I fell in a love lake and I couldn't be wetter. I'm breathing underwater, no matter the weather. I'm younger than I've ever been. I stepped through a portal, but I can't remember when. Come with me now to the place that never ends. I choose you, friend. Standing right there just like you've always been. Like we knew each other forever, we just didn't know then. Now we got no map, just a whole bunch of laughs, and we jumped in the ocean and we're not coming back. Now we're breathing underwater, we're lucky like that, yeah. I'm younger than I've ever been. I stepped through a portal, but I can't remember when. Come with me now to the place that never ends. I choose you, friend. This is it, we're living it, absolutely, I feel it when we kiss. I'm younger than I've ever been. I stepped through a portal, but I can't remember when. Come with me now to the place that never ends. I choose you, friend.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Roger Mindwater. His new album, Black Mountain, came out today on all streaming platforms. But be sure to head over to Bandcamp and send some money his way. A lot of work goes into putting out these records, and we want to make sure artists are getting paid for the art they're putting out. Thanks for listening to Songs of the Unsung. Once again, my name is Eric Barnett. Visit Songs of the Unsung on Facebook, Instagram, and our website, songsoftheunsung.com. We'll see you next time.